obviously from afar, but it did seem like people really respected and appreciated you like I did, which was good because I
Yeah.
knew sometimes people don't like people if they're not from their area or whatever, but it didn't seem like that affected you that
You
much.
know, as soon as people heard me spit, it was over. Like I
Right.
remember when I first met the rhyme inspector Percy P. Who was one of the deadliest MCs. When he first heard me and I heard him, I'm like, yo, we're gonna do a record together someday, right? And that was it. Like Ultramagnetic showed me love. It didn't matter, man. And the thing is, when you think of a group like Main Source, K Cut is from Toronto, so he grew up in New York, but like he welcomed me with open arms when I met Large Professor. They finished mixing my second album. Then they started mixing my second album when they were finishing mixing Breaking Atoms.
Oh
You know,
wow. The Black
yeah.
Tie Affair? That's what
Black
you
Tie Fair was mainly produced by K Cut from Main Source, man. And I remember coming down to New York, and all they were talking about was this dude by the name of Nas, this kid named Nasty Nas, man. He kept on reciting his bars over and over and over and over. Yo, he's only 15. Listen to this. Listen to this. And later on, look what Nas turned into, like the monster that he is, man.
I was
But I
going to say
remember
they were right on that one.
they were right with that one, man. They wouldn't stop playing that. That song, I got that memorized, his verse. They didn't care about anybody else's verse. Obviously, shout out to my brother Akinelli and, what have you, Joe Fatal. But the Nas verse was the one they kept on repeating over and over and over and over again, man.
Yeah, the Streets Disciple.
Yeah, man.
Uh, so going from Symphony in Effect to the Black Tie Affair, how did your artistic perception change and evolve? Because also, again, people always weren't putting out an album so fast. It took you about a year and a half, if I remember correctly. Um, but what did you learn and how did you change going from the first album to the second album?
Samples, more clever samples. I started digging in the crates more, a lot more jazz, fusion, what have you, as opposed to like break beats and stuff off the first album. You see what I'm saying? When you look at Symphony in Effect, a lot of the breaks you already heard from, if it wasn't like a funky drummer, James Brown, if it wasn't like, you know, same stuff that people used before, right? That was like 89. When 91, 92 rolled around, especially 91, it was more obscurity in terms of just like bass lines, horns, what have you, stuff that you never heard before that sounded funky, right?
Right.
So I say the sampling got more clever. We started digging in the crates much more. I think that's what changed. The speed, I got a little faster. Um, and I would say there were more social commentary tracks on the second album. So black symbolized black people, tie symbolized unity amongst people. That was the Black Tie Affair. And I try to put as much people on my record from Toronto as possible because I said it's not just me, it's us coming together. So you see artists like, Thrust, that's the first time he was ever on a record. Deborah Cox, we knew her as Debbie Cox back in the day. She was supposed to be on Conducting Things. She was in a group. I forget the name of the female group, but it was a four. Not I won't say like In Vogue, but that's all I could think of at the time. But yeah, she couldn't make it to that one. But I think she showed up to the Conducting Things video shoot to hang out anyway. But yeah, a lot of people are on that album. There's a brother by the name of K Force, who you might not know his name offhand, but when you hear like Charlie Brown say Force, Main Source, LP on the rise on the Scenario remix, that's my brother K Force, who was supposed to be the next in line after Large Professor left the group. He was going to join Main Source, right? Force is also responsible for branding T.O. That slang, we never heard that slang before. That came from our brother K Force. And if you look at the movie Juice, when you see those Hispanic brothers come or Hispanic looking brothers trying to rush Tupac, he was
Mhm.
one of them, right?
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, and shout out to Jesse Terrero and Yuli Terrero, who grew up to be like some of the top video directors in America. You know, they were there too on that same scene. So, but Forrest was a major player in the infancy of Toronto. He's one of the MCs as well that we have to give props to. So he was on a track called VIPs Only, which was the B side of my first single off the second album. So I was just trying to bring my community together, bring my city together with work.
Okay. And then you also had Poetry is Black on there. And like you were saying, it seemed like a lot of rap was starting actually to move away in a sense because of the gangster stuff. I think from the consciousness, but it seemed like you were getting way more, or not way more, but more. It was become more part of what you were doing. More of a reflective, social commentary and all that type of stuff. So, what was going on with you personally that made you want to make that evolution?
Um, you gotta remember I started this like a long time ago, man. I remember opening up for U.T.F.O when they came out with Roxanne, Roxanne. You know what I'm saying? There was something called the Battle of the Rappers back in Toronto. I think it was like '84. You know, where my crew, Vision, we won. I think it was like 30 groups across the city entered. They picked the top 8. They got to open up for U.T.F.O, you know? And so I've been doing this so long. By the time I got to 1992, I started seeing myself like I'm a grown ass man, you know? I can't be doing certain things or saying certain things that my younger brothers and sisters were saying and acting. I got to try to move, me personally, I try to lead by example. So that's what made me lean towards, as you said, more social commentary records and still have fun and still have, be witty and still have lyrics. But yeah, social commentary and just being grown.
Okay.
That's kinda where I was going with that album, what have you. But to me, it was always important to let MCs know you got some extra clips waiting for them when time comes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then I thought, fast forwarding a little bit, because there's a lot to talk about, but I did always think it was hilarious that "Nah, this kid can't be from Canada" project. So, what, um, as you look back, what do you think is the significance of that title for you at the time, and now looking back throughout your whole history?
So I remember being in New York, and I think King of Chill from
First priority, yep.
yeah, yeah, I was hanging with him, and I do believe it was the day either he introduced me to Red Hot Lovertone
Okay.
or I met
Track
Red
that.
Hot Lovertone from some other spot, but it was around that time. It could have been the same day. And he was spitting some bars, and I started spitting some bars. And then I said, "Yeah, man." He said, "Where you from?" I said, "I'm from Toronto." Toronto, yeah, Canada. Canada? Nah, this kid can't be from Canada. Nah, nah. He couldn't fathom the fact that you don't got to be from New York to be dope. There's other spots too. So I thought that would have been slick just to wake up everybody, give the world awareness. It's like, yeah, I am from Canada and I'm nice. So it was Red Hot Lovertone who inspired that title. A lot of people didn't get it. They thought a lot of people in Toronto thought I was hating on Toronto, not realizing, yo, fam, I wear Toronto on my back. I wear Canada on my back for all of you guys. Don't ever conceive the thought that it's a diss. I'm saying it's like, yo, cats over here can't believe how nice we are. You see what I'm saying? And and similar to my man Mad Skills, his album was called From Where?
Right.
Because he from VA. He ain't supposed to be that nice because he's not from New York. He's not from LA. He's from someplace that the average head doesn't think about hip hop. Do you see what I'm saying? So so
Yeah,
that's where
it's crazy that somebody would look at that title. I only thought of it that way because I thought that was the only way to look at it. So that's wild.
you're not from Toronto.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
true.
saying? And a lot of time too, my brothers and sisters, they weren't thinking cerebrally where I was in terms of like long term. You see what I'm saying? This is for us, for the world to see Canada is on the map. Yes, I'm wearing a Toronto Argonauts jacket. Yeah, I am wearing a Toronto Blue Jays hat. I'm like, don't ever conceive that thought. Do you feel me? So, because I knew what it was. And at the same time, too, I remember when I first met Showbiz, you know, he invited me over to his crib. That's when Dress from Black Sheep was living upstairs at his spot, and he was like, "Anybody ever tell you look like Rakim?" I said, "Nah, you're the first one." Then he started laughing. We went into the crib. He started going through records. He was surprised at my knowledge. He played me some breakbeat that I heard, some record, and I'm like, "That's the Fifth Dimension," and that's the same record that Large Professor them used for Coogee Rap for Dead or Alive. He looked at me like, "Yo, okay, okay." Then he started digging in the crates, and then he let me hear something that was called ended up being the Bring It On remix. And after it was done, he was like, "Yo, man, I slept on you, man." He said, "You caught wreck." Then he said, "But it's not my fault." And I completed his sentence. I go, "I know it's not your fault. It's hip hop's fault." Because you think the average person thinks if you ain't from New York or California, you're whack, right? And because you got to remember, this was 91, 92 time. You see what I'm saying? So that started a good like friendship in terms of making records. And then after that he said, "Yo, let me play you something." He played me 4 songs off the Runaway Slave album that just blew my mind. Like, yo, this is sick. And
Yeah.
then he played me He Say She Say, Still Digging in the Crates, um, Just Hold Your Head, and another one. But he said, "This chair," he goes, I got another beat for you, another track. He gave me this joint, and I'm like, "Yo, this is dope." He said, "Yo, Kid Capri sat in that same chair you're sitting right now." And he said, "If you ever play this record, make this a record, I'm going to play it." I said, "Dude, I don't know if the label got a budget for this next one." He goes, "Don't you understand what I'm saying? I'm giving you this, man." So that track he gave me was a track ended up being called Mike Mechanism, which was the
Really?
B side. Yeah, it was the B side of Bring It On, right? And watch this. Kid Capri played that on WBLS. First, he played Gangster Bitch by Apache. Then he played the instrumental. Maybe he didn't like me at the time, but he played the instrumental of Mike Mechanism. Then he blended it in with a record that people heard for the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the first time ever that Protect Your Neck was spun. It was
Oh
mixed
wow.
in with on a commercial radio station. It was Gangster Bitch, Mike Mechanism by Showbiz, produced by Showbiz, my joint, and then Protect Your Neck for that. Because we didn't know who it was. All we knew that was did that guy the genius? Because we didn't know him as GZA.
Right.
Did the genius do a symphony? That's what everybody was saying because RZA says at the end, "Yo, genius, take us the F out of here." Right? That was the first time I ever heard Protect Your Neck was mixed in.
Wow.
So yeah, man.
Now, I
Hip hop.
wouldn't, back to something that Showbiz also said, though, I wouldn't say I ever thought you looked like Rakim, but I did think Let Your Backbone Slide and Microphone or the Follow the Leader video, how you both had the tuxes and
Okay, 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 yeah.
your hair was kind of similar. So that's what I thought. I had actually thought that. I didn't think you looked alike, but I thought it was a resemblance a little.
Yo,
So
when I met Rakim, I said, "Yo, look how yo, fam, you know we look alike. We know we brothers, man." He started laughing. So I don't know if the guy was laughing at me, laughing with me, but that's the brother right there. That's the goat, one of the goats out there, definitely.
yes. So then it's interesting too, because you're like opening up for U.T.F.O. and then you're doing stuff with Showbiz and Kid Capri is playing your instrumentals. So that's a huge amount of time. That's 7, 8 years. So how did you would you say in the beginning of your career when you started writing, how did it evolve by the time you get to Black Tie Affair? What were you doing differently? What were you doing the same? Like how you wrote, where you wrote, what you needed to write, inspiration? Like how did all that evolve?
You're asking great questions, man. When I first started, I was inspired by like Jimmy Spicer, right? When I heard the Great Adventures of Super Rhymes, I was like, "Yo, I thought I had superpowers, man." You know, that joint right there. Obviously, Curtis Blow, the breaks and Rapper's Delight, definitely. And later on, when I heard LL Cool J, I was like, "Wow, this guy's dope." Obviously, Melly Mel before that, with Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, Run DMC. I remember being in summer school when Sucker MCs hit. I remember Lottie Dottie, Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh. My styles got more melodic when I first started, and then later got more into after I heard the message, got into saying it's okay to have fun records, but say something when if you have the opportunity to. So let MCs know you can kill them. Let have some fun records for the shorties, shake their ass, whatever like that. But if you got a platform to say something meaningful, say something meaningful. I got a slogan: don't make records, make history. I said, so anybody can make a record, but by making history is when you do something and you say something that people resonate and remember years and years later. So back in 88, we knew whoever comes out with that record first out of Toronto, we're busted. It's going to go through it. That's history, man. We doing it. So shout out to Stevie B for being at Electric Circus at the same time I was performing, definitely.
Okay.
And my
Okay.
styles changed from, I used to come up with titles and the music had to reflect the title. So for example, Let Your Backbone Slide. I heard a Billy Squire record called The Stroke. And he said that in the song. I'm like, yo, that sounds fresh. I'm gonna make a song called Let Your Backbone Slide. I told my producers, Pete and Anthony Davis of First Offense, the beats gotta have that boom bap that resonate with that. I come up with the title first and the music would reflect the words, right?
Hmm.
Um, when I heard It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, every song what Chuck D said, his lyrics, the first thing he ever said was a punch in the face. So yes, the rhythm, the rebel, here it is, bam. I heard a letter from the government the other day. Like everything he said, especially in that first album, the first line was a punch in the face. So that's why when I came up with Let Your Backbone Slide, the first thing I said was, this is a throwdown, a showdown. Held up, because at the first I caught your attention already. I already punched you in the face already. You see what I'm saying? So I learned that from Chuck D with the legendary album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, right? Um, as time evolved, um, I started finding the beats first and then writing afterwards. But I was always a concept driven artist. I come up with a concept and then I let the rhyme write itself, more or less.